Hiya guys, it's Nigel here again, Nigel's Land Rover channel, Defender 90 Keswick, and if you're wondering why I have that name on there, my favourite Land Rover on the planet pretty much is the Land Rover of Damien's from Australia, and it's a Orkney Grey 90, which is very, very modified, and obviously I'm a bit of a fan of the Puma. So yeah, his channel is called Defender 90 Orkney. Go and have a look at his channel. He's done a couple of walk arounds and he does a lot of great off-roading, fantastic filming, great music with it and everything. Editing is amazing. Really, really good channel, thoroughly enjoyable to watch. So that's why it's called Defender 90 Keswick, in line with him, because mine's Keswick Green, his is Orkney Grey. So there we go. So this is the build of the radio controlled Tamiya Land Rover Defender 90. As you can see, I've got the instruction manual here in front of me, and I'm calling this the intro because, as I said in my review I did of this, I'm kind of aiming this at people that have never built a radio controlled car before. Now, I happen to know a lot of people are kind of put off building these because they seem quite complicated. Handyman, I don't think would be put off, but a lot of people are, and they will actually pay people to build them for them. It's not so prevalent now because obviously you can buy so many radio control cars you just take out the box and play with. But I personally think there's a lot of fun in building it yourself, and then using it, modifying it, whatever. So I'm going to basically take you through this, and this is going to be like a series of build videos where I'm just going to let the camera run. So over a series of, I don't know how many videos, you will see the complete build of this 100%. And it will be 100% out of the box. I'm not going to modify anything. I'll build it out of the box. I've been looking around. I don't think I'll modify this too much. I think I probably am going to invest in something a little bit nicer with proper rigid axles and everything, and more tunable. But this will be a nice model to have, just to have around and play with in the house or whatever, if you like. But to a Land Rover fan, I think it's a great little project. So this is going to be called the introduction, and what I'm going to do is go through what you need, what you don't need, what I think is the best to buy, and basically where you can get it from. So if we look in the manual, if we start, the first page tells us basically what we're going to need to get. Now, first of all, in here we've got the radio gear. I'll come to that in a second. What I want to talk about first is the paints. Be very careful with your paints, because you can see down here we've got Tamiya polycarbonate. Oh, excuse the state of my hands, guys. I've been working on my transfer case. Tamiya polycarbonate paints and Tamiya plastic paints. There is a difference. Now, when you look at the aerosol, it shows here the Tamiya Colour Mini. When you look at the aerosols, I've got two paints here, and they're both black. We can see on the front of one, this says Tamiya Colour for plastics, and this one says Tamiya Colour for polycarbonate. And when we look at the top, we can see one is TS14 and one is PS14. So the one you need for these bodies, you paint them on the inside, is PS, the PS colour. But you can see here it's telling us to get PS22 racing green and PS1 white. White for the roof, obviously, green for the body. But you can spray it any colour you want, obviously. But with the polycarbonate paints, you paint them on the inside, and then you've always got that glossiness of the outer body showing through. These paints, these are designed for your normal scale plastic models that you'll see me do a lot of on my other channel, Nigel's Modelling Bench. And basically you can get them like this in an aerosol, or you can get them like this, say, in a jar, in a 10ml jar. This is X10 gunmetal. And you can see down here it says acrylic paint mini, and that's what this is. It's the X10, which means it's a gloss, and then you get the XF, which means it's a flat. So X is a gloss colour, XF is a flat colour, and that covers all your Tamiya paints. And you can see down here they're telling us to use TS29 semi-gloss black and TS43 racing green. Now obviously some of the body parts are going to have to be painted, like the grille and everything, and that's going to be what the semi-gloss black is for. Not quite sure about the racing green, why we would need that, but we'll look at that as we go through the build. I'm going to try and find a way of having this painted the same colour as mine, which is Keswick green, which is basically like a NATO green colour. So we've got down here X6 and X11. Well, I can show you those. There's X6, so that's X6, that's your orange, and there's X11. This is probably going to be for the lights and the back of the lights and everything. So yeah, in fact that's what they're going to be for. They're going to be for the front side lights and the front indicators, but I think I would rather have them as LEDs, but I don't think that's going to be possible. But we will see as we go. Normally I would start a project by painting the body, but as you know, we've had Storm Kiara 2 weeks ago. Then last weekend we had Storm Dennis, which was nice, and this weekend we've got Storm Jorge, I think it's called. It's a Spanish name because it's going to badly affect Spain. It's nothing like as bad as they were forecasting, but like on look outside now, it's actually sunny and quite still. But then in 5 minutes time, you may start hearing my vents start rattling and stuff. It will be blowing a gale. It's very, very strange. It's sort of 10 minutes of still and sunshine, and then 10 minutes of hail, rain, wind that's trying to rip everything off the house. It's crazy. I'm fed up with it. It's really preventing me from getting out of the garage and getting my Defender done, but at least you get to see me do this. So that's the paints covered. Basically, your TS is for plastic, your PS is for your body. Make sure you don't get anything else. You can't use like your car body paints or whatever. Something I'm going to look into, I've been reading on the internet, apparently you can get a PS matte varnish. Now, PS matte varnish will act as a primer, so you can spray that on the inside of the body and then paint it with this, which means I could use the TS colour for the NATO green to get my Keswick green colour. It's something I need to experiment with. It's something I need to try. Please don't try it until you've seen me do it. We'll see if it works. Another thing I'll say is if you don't feel sure about doing any of this, don't do it. Please don't try it just because I'm doing it. Basically, this is my disclaimer. Just because I'm doing it doesn't mean it's the right way to do it, and it doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. You know, you must find your own way to do things. So that's the paints covered. Radio gear. Now obviously the kit doesn't come with radio gear, but as I said in my review, this version comes with a electronic speed controller, which is what you need. Alright, so there's your electronic speed controller. That piece of electronics there, that is what controls your motor. So it takes a signal from the radio gear and converts that into basically a voltage to drive the motor forwards or backwards at any speed. Okay, so that's what the electronic speed controller does. I guess the clue is in the name. Now that comes with the kit. What you don't get with the kit is the actual receiver and the transmitter. Now you can either go for the old-fashioned, well, I call it old-fashioned because I'm old. You can go for the standard sort of old stick controller, or you can go for a modern, these are the wheel controllers. I've got both here, I'm going to show you in a second. So when you buy a radio set, generally they will be the radio transmitter and the radio receiver. So I'll show you here. This is the wheel type. Now this is something you can, I get these from Antics, and this is e-tronics. It's quite a good little brand. It's a good budget brand, quite good quality. So we can see here, this is basically the stick controller. I think I just said it was a wheel controller, didn't I? This is the stick controller, and we can see here this is a 6-channel. This is about £60, I believe, and you can see that we've got the 4 channels on here, and then we've got 2 channels here. And if you look at more in-depth stuff with your off-road 4x4 rock crawlers and stuff, these will be the diff locks. Okay, so they will generally have diffs off, one lock on, both locks on, very much like the new Jeep Wrangler. And then you've got your 4 channels here, so you have your steering on here and your throttle on there. So you only need 2 channels for this model. You don't need any more than 2, so there is no real reason to buy anything as fancy as this. But there you go, that's your normal stick type. And if you notice, if you remember the old RSC stuff, you used to have an antenna they used to pull out, and this hasn't got that. It's just got a little rubber antenna because it's 2.4 gig. It doesn't need the great big antenna, and the same as on the model, it doesn't need a great big antenna. There's your receiver. You can see there's the antenna. That's all you've got, and you could just have that just sticking out the top of the body or just in a post inside the body. It's great because you remember radio control cars of old, you had a great big mass sticking out of them. And you can see on here it says 6-channel receiver, and this is where you plug all your servos in. Some radio sets you buy will come with servos, so check what it is you're buying, and obviously also check the quality, because some servos may not be worth bothering with, especially on something like this if you're intending to go off-road with it. What will happen is you'll turn your steering, and the weight of the car and the off-road terrain you're on will actually push the wheels back, so you'll steer and it won't be able to go because the servo isn't strong enough. So that's something you have to avoid. This is the it.This Pulse. This is available from Antics as well, about £30. And this is a great starter radio. Something I really dislike is when companies still use polystyrene. It doesn't degrade, it doesn't break down, and it stays on the planet forever. Please, people, use like egg carton material. So this is your ordinary 2-channel car transmitter. So on here you've got a throttle and a brake. Okay, so throttle, brake, and then this is your steering here. And then inside here you have all your different trims and settings and everything. Okay, and then you've got the same sort of short little stubby rubber aerial there. This tends to be the preferred choice for cars, obviously, because you're actually steering a wheel rather than moving a stick. And what you'll find, a lot of people tend to put it sideways in front of them and drive like that, so they're actually steering and with their hand with the wheel in front of them, because it's, believe me, if you've never driven a radio controlled car, when you get in the distance and you turn around and it's coming back towards you and everything's opposite, it's quite hard to get your head round. So there's your little 2-channel transmitter, and that obviously comes with a receiver. You've got the little tiny receiver there, and you've got your actual inputs, and then your channels going on there. You've got little connectors that will plug in, and then you'll have a little button. There's a signal LED, and there will also be a button where you actually what you do is you what's the word? I can't think of the words you use. Bind. When you bind them, that's it. And actually the button's on there. So what you do is you bind them, and there's a process. It'll be in the instructions, and once it's all connected up to the power, you bind them together, and then these two are locked into each other then, and you won't get any interference from other models. So you could go in a field where there's 5 other people playing with model cars, you won't get any interference. So there's basically your 2-channel car type radio gear. As I say, you get this from Antics for about $29.99, I think it is, and that's everything you need there to get you going. All you'll need then extra on top of it, as far as electronics goes, is a servo. Now I've got a few of these old servos here lying around from many years ago. I'm not even sure if this is still available. You can see it's got an oil leak, slight oil leak there. This is an ACOMS AS16. I think it's about 9 kilo. It's all right. I wouldn't put this in a nitro car. I wouldn't put this in anything that had any weight to it. But for this, I think it'll be absolutely fine. Beauty is with this model, the servo is very easily accessible. If we look here, you can see the servos there. So if you broke it or found that it wasn't good enough, easy case of just undoing the middle screw here that holds the lever arm on. And then you'll have 2 screws, one there, actually holding it down. Disconnect it, pop another one in, straight in, bolt it in. Make sure you use the right converter. I'll go through that in a minute. You've got converters in there that connect to different style servos. These servos have a different spline, and they'll also have a different size hole in the middle. So there's a different range of screws and a different range of female splines that fit on them, but they all come in the kit. So you don't need to, that's in the model kit with the Land Rover, not the servo kit. So there you go, servos, they're just a couple of quid. I mean, they're not very much money at all. As I say, this stuff is all so much cheaper relatively than it used to be. When I was a lad, you know, this stuff cost a fortune. Or maybe it just appeared that it cost a fortune because I was a young lad without any money. I'm just an old man without any money. Then next here we've got the battery pack. Now this, again, I got this from Antics. This is a voltsrc.com. I think these are part of the Carson people. I'm not too sure, but basically they're obviously part of it.This. There we go. Obviously a lot of equipment you get from Antics is going to be it.This. And there we go. There's your 3000 NiCad battery pack. And I've already charged it up. That is what's called a Tamiya connector, and obviously this is what you need for a Tamiya kit. So that's going to connect to your electronic speed controller. You can see there's the plug there, on-off switch there. So normally with these kits, the first thing you do is set all this up and center your servo. But with this model, you don't do that. So what I'm going to do is saying here square-shaped battery packs cannot be used. This battery actually fits in the chassis. I'll show you here. You can see there's the battery fitted in there, so it slots in. So it gives it a low centre of gravity, and it's easy to change out the side. So you need to get yourself one of those. Okay, they never come with the kit as far as I know. So get yourself one of those Tamiya batteries. It's also worth looking when you buy battery. Look at the cable. If the cable is thick and stiff, that generally indicates it's a cheap battery. And they do snap off if they're thick and stiff because of all the flexing it does. So it's best to look for something with a decent quality cable. The other thing to look for, I will show you now what I think of it. You could also get batteries like this. And this is basically, you see, it's the same size, okay? It's the same size end on, but it's got one extra pack on it. So with a lot of the Tamiya kits, because the battery clips in from the side and is held in by each end by clips, you often can't fit them in without modifying them. So be careful. The shopkeeper might tell you that this is a better battery. It is, well, depending on what rating it is. This is only a 2000. But you'll make sure that it's actually going to fit your model before you start. The other thing obviously to remember is it's that much heavier as well. So there we go, that's the radio gear taken care of, and we've already talked about the paint. Now let's have a chat about the tools. So they're telling you screwdriver large and screwdriver small. These are the two I like to use. This one's often out in the garage, that's why it's grubby. I'll give it a clean. Here's B&Q Special. This is a great screwdriver. There's no number or anything on it, but if you see, this screwdriver is PH1 by the look of it. It's brilliant for Tamiya models. It fits Tamiya screws beautifully. Okay, so that's just a cheap B&Q screwdriver. This one actually stays in the house. And this is an electrical screwdriver. You don't need an electrical screwdriver. You're not going to get any shocks. But this is basically just a small screwdriver. You can also get your little stubby type like this, and then there's other types like this, and lots of different ones. There's that type there with a very sharp point on it. I like to use this one because it's long and thin. Sometimes this type will be better because it will get down obviously through holes that won't get down. Okay, so there you go. You will also find with some Tamiya models you buy, they give you a beautiful little screwdriver, which is very nice, and I can't think where mine is right now, but you could also use these sets like this. The only trouble is the heads are so big, so small, you can't really get any torque into them, so worth remembering. So there's your screwdrivers. A pair of tweezers. These little things are great. Stainless steel, non-magnetic, which can be helpful. Or you can get yourself an ordinary pair of these, are like the Tamiya tweezers. Okay. Or you can get your sort of ones like this, non-magnetic stainless steel. You might want magnetic ones. So there we go. There's your tweezers taken care of, and your screwdrivers. Long nose pliers. These are just cheap long nose pliers from sort of Hobbycraft and places like that. They got a spring in them that opens out. You may wish to get rid of that, but it does make it easier to just put them down and then pick them up and use them rather than have to open them every time you want to use them. Side cutters. Now side cutters, I think I mentioned this in the review, they may be thinking about things like, or you may be thinking about like electrical side cutters, wire cutters that you get, the big industrial things. They're not so good for this kind of thing because they tend to have a beveled edge. Now if you look at this cutter here, you can see this back edge is flat. When it's closed, it's flat. If you look at wire cutters, they tend to have a beveled edge, so you can't get in close to stuff and cut it. So if I wanted to cut, say, something off the side of here, I can get right on the side and cut it off and leave it flush. Whereas if I had wire cutters, I would cut it and it would leave a lump on there. The other problem is with those sort of cutters, you can see with these, because they've only got an angle on one side, what they're doing is actually slicing. What the side cutters tend to do, they're like a V shape like that, so they're almost like your teeth. They're always gnawing it off, so they push stuff apart. And sometimes when you're cutting stuff off a sprue, your plastic sprues, you can actually break them because you're putting so much side force on them. So cutters like this, these are cheap and nasty, but they're perfectly good if you're not going to be using them a load. Far nicer are ones like these, the little Tamiya cutters, but these can be quite expensive. Now these are my old ones, they're chipped. What I generally do is I use them until they're worn out or chipped or something, then I get a new one, and then these become my seconds. Okay, so these were my firsts, these were my seconds, okay, and then when these get worn out, I've got another pair, and these are my firsts. You can see these are a slightly different style. I can't remember the numbers now, but go for the bigger one. These are much better. I'm not so keen on these. So there you go. There's your Tamiya side cutters. So I'm going to use those because I've got them, and I'm only going to use the third set, which is chipped, because some of the ABS and polycarbonate parts in these radio control kits are extremely hard and can cause damage. As you can see, what happens, like these I use for cutting wire, and you can see what's happened there. Basically they've got like serrated edges on them now where the wire has actually damaged the cutter, so they're just cheap and nasty. Modelling knife. Now what they're showing you is this type of thing here with the knife that comes out and you snap the end off. I tend to not use these very much at all unless it's really heavy work. If it is heavy work, I'll use a razor saw. A razor saw is one of these, which if you're not a modeler you don't need in your collection, but for scale modelling they're almost essential. Very, very good. It's like a very, very thin photo etch blade, which is then hardened, and it's for cutting very, very fine cuts. Rather than using that knife, I tend to use my modelling knife, which is actually a scalpel, so you can use one of those. Just be careful because, as I say, a lot of the plastic in these models is very hard, and you will cut and it will suddenly go, and you may well cut yourself. So you may even see me cut myself doing this. Health and safety warnings there, and some do's and don't do's there. Okay, so basically they're saying sit down and listen to the person, whoever's building it with you. This video isn't aimed at children, but if you are a youngster watching this, be very, very careful. You need to listen to an adult, and don't go using any of these sharp tools or anything without adult supervision. But this is not meant for children, so be very, very careful. And there's some bits and pieces here telling you all about what you can do to make it break. Be careful about it not going wrong. And then this is showing you your basically your radio setups, and you can see here you've got your transmitter, and it's basically on-off switch, servo, electronic speed controller, receiver. You've got the same down here, exactly the same. It's just with the stick type radio. Right, so basically this is where we would start building the model now, and what we would do is read the manual before assembly. Familiarise yourself with the way Tamiya manuals work. Now, I talked about this I think a bit in my review, and what this is basically showing you is down the left here you've got a list of all the parts you'll require for that stage, or all the metal parts should I say. So when we come to start the build, you'll see I'll have a great big bag of parts, and in there will be a bag called A, and that will deal with 1 to 6, and we'll get all those metal parts out, and step by step we'll put them all together as it says in here. On the subject of the motor, the other thing I've done, I've got this, while I was looking through my stuff I found this motor. This is a Carson Poison truck. It's a 55 turn motor. Now, turns is the amount of turns of wire on the armature. So, is it the armature? I can't remember if it's the armature or not, but basically it's the number of turns of wire in the motor. So this is actually a brushed motor, so the internal parts go around, the outside stays stationary obviously, and the brushes are mounted in the back. So it is the armature, isn't it? So this has got 55 turns. The standard motor that comes with the kit, I believe, is a 27 turn. Basically, the lower the number of turns, the faster the motor. So as you know with physics, the more speed, the less torque. So this is a 55 turn motor, so it's not going to be as fast, it won't turn as fast, but it'll have a lot more torque and work at a lot slower speed. So I'm going to put this motor in this Land Rover and see what it's like. Again, if I don't like it, it's easy to change. Just take this cover off and we can get to it. So I'm going to use this motor in this model and we'll see what it's like. I think it should be able, I basically want it to be able to literally creep very, very slowly. What I don't want is to sort of, you know, if this is my throttle control here, I don't want to be pulling back on the throttle, pulling back, and suddenly it lurches forward, which I think is what it might do with the standard motor. So we'll see. So that's what I'm going to use that. I didn't buy that especially, and if I didn't already have it, I probably wouldn't have bought it, but I'm going to use it because I've got it. The other thing we talked about in the review was these bearings. Now you can see here we get metal bearings and we get plastic bearings. Now the white plastic bearings are like a nylon material, and the metal bearings here, they almost look like a phosphor bronze. In fact, I'll turn off now and come back because I'm going to show you what I mean. Right, here you can see the sort of spares I've built up over the years of having these kits, and quite a few little bits and pieces. These are the different servo bits I was talking about, the different converters. What I want to talk to you about is these bearings. Now this is a plastic bush bearing, which is as they're referring to here, which is an 1150, and the size is basically, they don't consider the width with these bearings, they talk about the diameter and the bore. So it's an 11.5, so it's 11mm OD, 5mm bore. This one is an 850 metal bearing, which is 8mm OD, 5mm bore. And as you can see down here on the instructions, if I'm not off the camera, you can see it says 850 metal bearing, 1150 plastic bearing. So that's what you're going to get in this kit. Okay, here's an 1150 metal bearing. So if you've built a few of these and you've got these lying around, don't be tempted to use that in place of that. The reason is, a lot of the times the actual part, the shaft, will work through this bearing. So the outside will be stationary and the inside will be spinning. One of the beauties of the plastic bush is, if you get any dirt or debris in there, the dirt or debris will be driven into the plastic and sit there. The trouble with this, it will stay in there and just chew through your shaft. So be a little bit careful. That is not necessarily an upgrade to that. Now maybe when you're inside the diff, like in here, it may be an upgrade, but be very, very careful what you're doing. My suggestion would be, for the very minimal cost, would be to go down this route. Now this is a set from a company called RC Bearings. You'll find them on eBay, and this is actually a set of bearings designed for this kit. And you buy them, you can buy them by individual bearings in sets of 5 or 10 or whatever, but this is actually, you can see CC01, and it's a kit. Okay, so we've got, basically what they're doing here is providing us with a replacement set of bearings for the complete model. And you can see here they've got 1150. Okay, there's 11 of those, and then we've got the smaller ones there. There's our 850s, and they are actual bearings, proper roller ball bearings, or ball bearings, sorry, roller ball bearings. It's not the correct thing to say, but they're actually rolling on that shaft, so they're actually acting as bearings. So they're not a bush. The shaft isn't going to be sliding inside a bush, it's actually going to be turning inside that shaft. And if you wanted to, you could actually lock them in, so you know, so that you're never going to get anywhere in there. Only trouble is, if you wanted to get them off, it may be a difficult job. Which leads me on to another thing I want to talk to you about. These diagrams down the side, they're always the correct size. So as you can see here, if you're unsure of something, I can put that bearing there and it's a perfect match. Okay, and then this one here, as you can see, I can put that on there. Size wise, it's a perfect match. These diagrams down the side, the screws, the grub screws, the gears, everything is always the actual size. Okay, so if you are confused about the size of a screw or the length or whatever, then it tells you in there actually what it is. or it shows you on there what it is. So that is the full set of bearings for this kit, and that cost a total of $12.85, I think it was, with free delivery. I mean, it's a no-brainer really for what it costs, because you're just replacing everything with proper ball bearings rather than having bushes in there. And especially with something like this that's going to be maybe getting wet or dusty or whatever, you know, if it's something that's going to be on a track all the time, it's still going to get dust in there. Believe me, these things get filthy. It's unbelievable how dirty they get, even if you just run it around in a car park. They do get extremely dirty inside, and it gets everywhere. So very, very much worth going for the bearings there. If there's only one thing you buy as your hop-up options, I would get the bearings. So we just go through the instructions, and then we get to places like this, and it gives us options. So we can buy different size gears. Okay, so we can have a 20 tooth or a 21 tooth. The standard kit has got a 16 tooth. So the 21 tooth is going to give you more speed. On a model like this, do you want more speed? I think you probably want less speed. You want to be like in one low all the time, don't you? So there we go. And then you can see here it's talking about bearings. So MA9 1150 ball bearings, 16 pieces. So obviously you get 16 pieces in the set, but you only need 11 of them for this model. And then you've got the Tamiya part numbers here, 5030, 850, 4 pieces. But believe me, they're going to be a lot more expensive than buying them from RC Bearings. So that would be my way to go. And if we look in the back, we will find a list of parts. And it will show us the amount of bearings we need. So if you look here, we've got MA9, we've got 6 there, 5 there, so that's it, 11. We've got 11 MA9s in the kit, and there's 11 in that set. So way to go, that's the way to go with it. And then as we go through the instructions, stuff like this spanner and stuff, this bot wrench, that's going to be in the kit. All our shafts and everything are all going to be in there. You get the grease with the model. It's even telling you about bending the terminals and everything. It's so straightforward. And then again, we've got a list down the side here. It's telling us how to fit these steering arms and everything. And the other thing, I think I mentioned this in the review, any screws or nuts or bolts or whatever that are black, you can see they're shaded in, so they're black in colour. Okay, so there we go. There's the intro. Now the next video might be today, or it might not be till tomorrow. It's going to be weather dependent. At the moment, the wind and the rain and the hail has stopped. It's not windy, so I may go out in the garage and do some more work on my transfer box. I'm going to be video recording that for you. At the moment, I'm in the cleaning phases, so we shall see. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that little snippet. I hope you didn't find it too boring. If you're very, very new to this and you want to have a go, you've probably found it quite interesting. If you're not, then you haven't. But as I say, my plan is with this is to go through the model. One other thing I would get yourself is a sanding stick. This is a 100 grit. It's an Infini sanding stick. You can get these from Premium Hobbies. That's the company there, down in Weston-super-Mare. If you're not into the modelling scene big, you won't need anything as professional as this. However, saying that, they do last a very long time. If you go and buy your normal sort of, you know, nail sticks like this from your supermarket, they don't last very long at all, and they all bend up. You can see what happens. They bend up, and the paper starts to rise up, and then you start breaking stuff when you're sanding it. So if you're getting into modelling or whatever, Infini is the way to go with the sanding sticks. They're absolutely awesome. They do a range of sponges as well. Got the sponges here, nice and soft, so you can sand round things without sort of making them square. And then you get your smaller ones. These are the Matadors, and they're very nice as well. So and they even do some photo etch ones like this, where you get a hard piece of photo etch and you stick some adhesive to the back of it, and then you've got a very, very hard sanding stick then. And they go, and pick the whole packet up. There's a stand for them as well, and you can see you've got little narrow ones and pointed ones, which are really, really handy. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Next video we're going to start the build, and as I say, my plan is I do a lot of model building videos, as you'll see on my other channel, Nigel's Modelling Bench, as I already mentioned. But with this one, what I intend to do is just put the camera on and leave it rolling. Okay, so you'll see every single part of the build. You'll see me make a mistake, you'll see me cut stuff off the sprue, you'll see me sand it, every single little build, every little part of the build. It's a bit of a pain, to be honest, because it's nice to have a bit of music on in the background, but obviously when you're modelling on camera, you can't do that, and a lot of people do videos and put music over the top. They get a lot of complaints. I used to put music over the top and I got a lot of complaints. So basically it'd just be all talking and, you know, put it on the background, whatever, sit and have a cup of coffee, watch. But yeah, there'll be quite a few stages. I'll probably do half an hour, 45 minutes per video, and we'll see it all go together. So thanks for watching this. I'll see you all very soon. We'll start the build, and I'm also going to be putting up the how to build a transfer box video as well. Bye for now.